Welcome to this episode of the Conscious Business Coffee Break, where we take a few moments to explore what's happening in the conscious business movement, expand awareness, and so importantly, encourage your efforts in conscious business. Greetings, everyone. I'm Stephen Donaco of the Conscious Business Enterprise, a division of Humanities team. And on today's episode, talking about a new model for career pacing. And this segment is inspired by a couple of pieces that I read, one from the Wall Street Journal called Forget Old Age, It's Time to Live Long and Really Prosper, and then a column in the online zine called Quartz, which is about a Stanford researcher who says we shouldn't start working full-time until age 40. What a concept that is. And both these pieces are based on the work and the writing of Laura Carstensen, who's founding director on the Stanford Center on Longevity. So she studies longevity, which is actually a better word for aging, right? I think aging is loaded with a bunch of connotations, and longevity is a much better word for it. So I'm happy that she calls her center the Center on Longevity. But in any case, Linda Carstensen says, we need a new model for work. The current one doesn't work because it fails to recognize all of the other demands on our time. People are working full time at the same time they're raising children. You never get a break. You never step out. You never get to refresh. We go at this unsustainable pace and then pull the plug, which of course she's referring to retirement there. And her work focuses on redesigning institutions to accommodate the lives that people actually have versus the lives that have been projected upon us. And this is based in the truth that, our lives are longer, and in many cases they're healthier than at any time in human history. So case in point is that life expectancy nearly doubled in the 20th century. And rather than think innovatively and using our imagination about this opportunity of people living longer lives, instead societies tend to be troubled and worried about how to cope or deal with the elderly and its growing population. So we need to look at this as a opportunity rather than as an issue. So she says the real problem is that our lives are still led according to the norms and the social scripts that guided our grandparents. So the longevity has not innovated. And she says we're creatures of culture, and life expectancy increased, frankly, too fast for culture to keep pace with it. So Linda says, let's flash forward 30 years from now. And she has this great vision for how we innovate longevity versus continuing to see it as a challenge or a problem, because really it isn't. And this is the expansion of consciousness, particularly in an evolved conscious business movement. So this works perfectly for us. So she just says, let's look forward 30 years. And in her vision, we work more years, but fewer days in a week. And this helps us to reap cognitive, social, emotional, and physical benefits in addition to financial gains of working longer, but also working better and working smarter. Okay, this isn't the same old tired work that we've been doing. Working more years but fewer days in a week also mitigates the sudden and what I would say is the artificial loss of status, social interaction, and purpose that can follow retirement from a long and solely linear career without any breaks in it. So she says full-time, quote unquote, ideally would begin around the age of 40. So think about that as a concept rather than in our early 20s. And the reason for this is, the result is that careers would be longer, and you'd have a gradual transition to part-time work in later years before full retirement, which could be around age 80. And the reason for this is that simply has to do with raising children in most cases, because rather than raising children and competing with career, right? So a lot of people struggle with this, is that they're raising their kids at the peaks of their careers, and one or the other loses out. And unfortunately, a lot of times kids lose out because parents feel compelled to pay a lot of attention, a lopsided attention to career. Not true in every case, but the culture we're in almost demands it, and it's a very insidious thing. So if parents are allowed in through their 20s and 30s to spend more time raising their children, and then look to work more on a full-time basis as they approach 40, this allows parents to finally and in reality achieve a work-life balance. And in the other thing that changes is that we pursue multiple careers rather than have one career throughout our lives. And this is something that a lot of us have experienced anyway. I grew up in a mindset and in a culture that you would have one job for all of your career and then retire. And actually, my own career has been quite the opposite. I've cycled through a few different careers. And with that, you pursue education multiple times. And this continues throughout life, according to Linda. You have intermittent returns to school, what she calls nano degrees, and employer-based training. There are more gap years, sabbaticals, and extended leaves between jobs. These become more commonplace in the future. And then workforces will be more age diverse than ever before, which is not a bad thing at all. The research on mixed age work teams indicates that they perform all others. So a team that's just completely made of 20-year-olds in a company ultimately doesn't perform as well, or isn't as well rounded as a team that has a mix of 20, 30, 40, 50, 60-year-olds and beyond. Because there's a combination of energy, enthusiasm, wisdom that is all included in a age diverse team. So, and to that point, Linda says matching the speed and flexibility of youth with the experience and stability of age will make work more enjoyable and profitable in the age of longevity. Career arcs will expand early and contract very gradually, rather than just simply terminate in an instant at the age of retirement. And this happens as we trade income for flexibility, and we apply skills that have been well honed over the years to work that both matters and has meaning. So when I read these columns and this information that comes out from Linda, my reaction to it is that it's all about innovation. And I've said this before on the coffee break, that you wouldn't expect any of the technology that you use today, whether it be your cell phone, your TV, your car, you wouldn't expect those to stop being innovated. So why should we expect our culture to stop innovating? Or why shouldn't we expect the way that we work to stop innovating? We need to be a flourishing humanity to take a look at everything that we do and all of the structures that we have, and be open about innovating all of them, and not continue to move forward, or stay stuck rather in a framework of career that is based on the origins of the Industrial Revolution, punching a clock, working a 40-hour week, which has actually then evolved for a lot of people into working 50, 60, 70-hour, 80-hour weeks, which have been unhealthy for both self and family, and ultimately community and the world. So in alignment with the Conscious Business Declaration, I see two of the principles at work here, which is number one, we are one with humanity and all of life. Business and all institutions of the human community are integral parts of a single reality, interrelated, interconnected, interdependent, regardless of how old you are, regardless of how long you've been on the planet. And then principle 7 is, when aligned with oneness, business is the most powerful engine on earth for creating prosperity and flourishing for all. And I'll qualify that by saying provided it innovates in all aspects. So there you have it on the coffee break today. Thank you for everyone who's tuned in live. See you all coming in and watching. I appreciate it. And I trust that you're taking this information and just being more mindful about how you do business. So that's huge, and the world certainly needs you to be out there to be agents for change in a conscious business world. So until Friday at 9 a.m. U.S. Central Time, we'll see you there for another edition of the Conscious Business Coffee Break. Have a wonderful day, everyone.